6-1 na Sujan.
Good evening. Welcome all on this one more episode of Hitcon HITTalk. As we all know, HITTalk is a series of talks on technology for healthcare professionals, and we organize this on regular basis under the banner of Hitcon. So happy to see you all after a big gap. Now we'll be on track and we'll plan to organize one HITTalk at least every month. If possible, maybe couple, but at least one HITTalk for a month we will be definitely be planning. And we will be coming with a good news to meet you all in person very soon. We'll be sharing more details in the time to come. Today, we are going to talk on a very different subject, which I was also not aware when I spoke to Dr. Om Lakhani. So, but I will not talk much about the topic and all. We have got two of our Hitcon stalwarts with us, Dr. Chaitanya Buch sir from Vadodara, and Dr. Buch sir is a very well-known figure to all of us. We fondly call him as computer savvy Buch, Dr. C.S. Buch. Sir is a consultant physician in Vadodara, very tech-savvy doctor and having a lot of feeders in his camp. So without much ado, I will hand over mic to Dr. Buch sir for introducing us to the subject. Dr. Buch sir, please.
Thank you, Pragnesh Bhai and Dr. Bhupesh Bhai and Om and all the delegates who are present online. When in 80s, I started practice, I started with a slogan, computers in medicine and medicine on computers. It has been already 40 years since then. And now the enthusiasm with Om remains the same, but the wordings change. If we were talking of intelligence, we now talk of artificial intelligence. When we want to do calculation, the one which does the calculation is calculator. Same way, when we want to compute, we call it computer. And the process of that computing is computation. And Bhupesh Bhai, you would agree that every doctor who is listening to this talk is very much aware of the computation of income, right? After you do that qualitative assessment of your income, you know how much you earn, how much you have taxable income, what is your TDS, what are your liabilities, assets. Same thing, that computation when applied to medicine and healthcare, it becomes computational medicine. So I think the subject proper will be discussed by Dr. Om, who is the endocrinologist with a flair for technology. So he will do that. But I would only say that I am recently, last week, I am appointed for the Academic Advisory Board of Navratna University for 5-year biomedical science course, where we have these things in very big detail. So right, we have to have qualitative impressions so far. Now we are talking of quantitative aspects of disease, diagnosis, treatment, anatomy, physiology, and various processes which take place and lead to a precise and a personalized medicine, and molecular arena is becoming more and more available to us even in clinical area. So over to Dr. Bhupesh Bhai for the introduction of the speaker now. Bhupesh Bhai.
Unmute karo sir.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to the CME series of Hitcon. Since long time, I am with you for conversations and new subject. Sir has already differentiated the computation of income and computation of computer. So I privileged to introduce Dr. Om J. Lakhani. He is a consultant endocrinologist at Zydus Hospital. He's completed MD and DNB endocrinology, technology in endocrinology, thyroid disorders, and endocrinology, oncology. His major achievements. He is a winner of President NBE gold medal in endocrinology, winner of 2 gold medals in MD, and winners of 5 gold medals in MBBS. National winner of ESI TYSA in 2016, second runners-up in AV Gandhi Awards 2017, and the development of several apps in endocrinology, not in endocrinology, Centurion insulin app, hypothyroidism in pregnancy, and coming soon with the algomeds. He has a 26 publications and 15 book chapters. Friend, I welcome on behalf of Hitcon, Dr. Om J. Lakhani.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you to Dr. Pragnesh Bhai, Dr. Bhupesh sir. Thank you for the introduction, and Dr. Buch. Dr. Buch is a source of inspiration for me for many years. I know him since 40 years. I am 40-year-old, so that's how long I had known him for. So I'll start by sharing my screen. Yeah, the screen is visible?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So when Dr. Pragnesh sir approached me for giving a talk where I had a choice of topic, I chose the topic which is something which I'm looking forward to. I've worked a lot in this area and looking forward to taking this forward ahead in future as well. And that's computational medicine, right? So today I'm going to give you an introduction to computational medicine, what exactly it is, what we are trying to achieve, and how you can be a part of this as well. So that's the whole idea. You've all seen the movie Inception, right? So here I'm not trying to, in the next 20-30 minutes, I'm not going to give you a new degree in medicine or a subspecialty of medicine. I'm going to implant an idea in your brain, and that idea, when you mull over it, when you munch over it, that idea will become something fruitful in future, and future will probably collaborate to take this forward. So I'm Dr. Om Lakhani. I'm an endocrinologist in Ahmedabad. But apart from that, I call myself a technocrinologist. I indulge in technology a bit, and I code a little bit also. I'm keenly interested in AI, so you'll see some of the work which we have done over the past few years in this. Now, let me begin with a bit of philosophy, a bit of, again, implanting an idea in your brain. So if you see medicine has evolved over several eras. So if you see the earliest era, it used to be an era of witch doctors, right? Medicine was magic, basically, right? So somebody would perform some magic rituals and the patient would be cured. And then medicine came as a philosophy. If you see Ayurveda, or if you see, ancient Greek philosophers, medicine was the part of philosophy, right? Where they looked at medicine from a very curious philosophical perspective. And then if you see the Renaissance period, if you see Da Vinci, if you see a lot of, painters, they used to paint the human body, right? So medicine became an art, right? So the structure of the human body became a curiosity for the Renaissance painters. And then came the era of vaccination and the era of medications and antibiotics. That is where medicine became a science, right? So medicine was where you use scientific principles around the world wars, the 2 world wars, where medicine became actual science. Then in the modern era, medicine is now data science. Okay, so if you see current era, this is the current era of medicine. How medicine really works? You have evidence-based medicine. So I conduct a clinical study, I do a randomized controlled trial, and it's basically data science, right? My drug works better than the existing drug. That is what medicine is. But the next era is completely different. Medicine is mathematics. I'm sure when I was in 12th grade, I had to make a choice between biology and computers, which is a very odd choice to make, right? Even later on, you had students choose between biology and medicine, biology and mathematics, which is again very odd. I think actually, somebody who understands biology now should also understand mathematics. And that is what my argument is going to be, that, I was always taught when I was in medical school, Dr. Butch is from the same institute. We were always taught by our teachers that 1 plus 1 is never equal to 2 in medicine, which is probably true currently, but probably in future we should try and make 1 plus 1 equal to 2. That should be our aim. Precision should be our aim, right? So that is how we should look at it. Now, you'll then ask me that if medicine becomes part of computers and computers start giving out evidence and giving out medicine, what is the role of a doctor? Well, that is where the entire cycle really changes. We are back to that art and philosophy, right? Will be no more, scientists and data scientists. Will be people who actually see medicine as an art form. And you'd all seen, parallel to that is probably the law, right? Where you have litigators and you have trial lawyers, and they're the lawyers who actually do the research and do all the paperwork and all the drafting of the paperwork and all that. But there are lawyers who are actually trial lawyers who stand in front of the judge, stand in front of the jury, and present the case and convince the jury or convince the judge of the outcome. Right? The same way, our job, right? A decision would be made by a computer, but our job will be to convey that decision to the patient. We all know that patients always don't think in the right way. So you give the right choice to the patient. Sometimes patients don't take the right choice. But it's our job as a doctor, and our job, that job is something which is going to be even more nuanced and even more sharpened in the upcoming future. And that is what basically medicine will be for us. So what is computational medicine? It's a new branch of medicine which I'm proposing. It's not me who has proposed it. It's been around for a while. A lot of people have spoken on it. A lot of people have written on it. It's basically what combines the computer with healthcare. But what I'm trying to point here is we are not just combining the computational aspect of it, but we are also taking the principles and the framework of thinking from a computer perspective or a computational perspective to day-to-day clinical practice. And that is what I'm going to argue in the next few minutes, is how you can, even today, without knowing computers also, how you can apply the principles of computers in your day-to-day practice to make your clinical practice more more nuanced, more better. So what are the core principles of computational medicine? And I'm going to discuss each of them in more detail. So the first thing is break everything into an algorithm and code. Second, break everything into granular details, into basic building blocks. Third, very importantly, if it is measured, it is managed. That's a very important argument I'm going to discuss. And then finally, and this is where 1 plus 1 should be equal to 2, precision is everything. So these are the core principles of computational medicine that we're going to discuss today. Let's start with the first situation, right? The first situation is basically break everything into an algorithm and code. So a few years back, there was a new diabetic drug which could be used for obesity in the market. And then, that same drug is now, it's very popular across the world. Now it's actually used for obesity. And then, when the drug came to me for the first time, I had this debate in my brain that what type of patient should I use this drug, right? Who are the right candidates for drug? It is an expensive medicine. It is a very expensive medicine, costs about 300, 400 rupees a day. So I had to use it for the right patient, right? Using it for the wrong patient is not going to work. So what I did was to design a little small algorithm in my mind about which patients should I prescribe this drug. Now, if you see your own clinical practice, you would be making these little algorithms every time you see with a patient, right? You realize this or whether you don't realize it. But you make this little algorithm in your brain every time you see a patient. So if you see a obese patient, you will probably say that I'll not give this patient pioglitazone when the patient is diabetic. If the patient is having, is thin and wasted, probably you will not give SGLT2 inhibitor, right? This is one example from a diabetes. Right? For example, if you see, let's say a patient with cough, right? Patient has a dry cough, patient has sputum, right? Patient has a chronic cough. You say, okay, patient has chronic cough, maybe it could be tuberculosis. We are always taught like this, right? We are always taught in algorithm way. We don't realize it, but we are. So again, this is where I thought of making a little algorithm in my brain. So what are the things that I needed, right? So I said, this is a drug for obesity. So for obesity, I need to calculate the BMI. So to calculate the BMI, I need the height of the patient, I need the weight of the patient, right? So these are the things I do. So I do a little coding myself, but like I said, you don't need to do coding, right? You can use a pen and paper also. Make this little algorithm in your notebook. Or stick it on, make it on a page and stick it on your clinic, and you can review that whenever the patient comes, or put it in a file, right? You can do it on paper. So what I did, because I do a little bit of coding myself, I decided to write a code for it. Again, these are all illustrative examples, right? I don't want you to write code. Maybe if you want, you can, but the idea is that basically, you could do it this way, right? This is a way of framework of thinking. So I wrote a little code for myself for calculating the BMI, right? Of course, there are third-party apps which you can use, but why not do it yourself, right? So a little code first. So basically, to write a code for a BMI, you'll require the weight in kg and you'll require height. And generally, we measure the height in feet and inches, right? Or maybe in centimeter, depending on how you use your app. So what I wanted was an app which just by clicking a button gives you the BMI in kg per meter square. So, of course, you can do coding, but nowadays, all of you would have heard of this god-like thing called ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT, if you are, into ChatGPT, if you started using even the basic versions, there are a lot of other AI models also. You can try Perplexity and you can write Gemini from Google, right? There are a lot of other models also. So ChatGPT is very good at writing code. Okay, so even if you don't know how to code yourself, you can ask ChatGPT to write a code. So what I wrote this little prompt and then put it in ChatGPT. So I said, ChatGPT, what I want is I want you to write a code in HTML and JavaScript for calculating the BMI. So what I want is that the user enters the height in feet and inches and weight in kilogram. And after clicking the button, it gives you the BMI value in kg per meter square. It's a very simple prompt. This is exactly what I said, I wanted to do. So you can see here, ChatGPT is writing a little code, right? And I also specified which language I want, right? So it's writing the entire code for me. You can see, right? The entire code is written for me. It's writing the entire code. So now all I have to do is that take that code and see whether that code is working, right? So this is a site you can Google this, you can Google for HTML compiler, right? Free HTML compiler, something like that, right? On Google. So this is what I did, and this one showed up, which is called One Compiler. So I just copied this code and pasted it here, right? And you can see on the right side, you can see the code which is being generated, right? So exactly what I wanted: height in feet and inches and weight in kilogram. And by clicking submit, you get the BMI, right? So the height of the patient, for example, is 5 feet. The height is 5 feet and 10 inches, and the weight is 85 kgs. The BMI is 26, right? That you can get this by calculating. Okay. So here we put some other data. Let's say, okay, put some other data, you will get this value. Okay. So this is what we basically did. Okay. Now let's look at it further, right? So this is the first step. Now the next step was that now calculated the BMI. Now what I want is, if the BMI, so if you see the guideline, if you see the product monograph also, the guidelines say that if the patients, in which patient should you prescribe a obesity drug? Patients with BMI more than 30, you should prescribe the drug if there are no contraindications. And if the BMI is more than 27 with comorbidities, then you should prescribe the drug again if there are no contraindications. So this is the next step. So then I had to again, so remember, this is, see how I'm thinking, right? So here I need to be very specific. What comorbidities I'm looking for? 1, 2, 3, 4. What contraindications I'm looking for? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? When you, I'm sure, we all given exams in, vivas in front of our teachers. Our teachers always say, okay, point wise bolo. What are the causes of cough with, what are the causes of hemoptysis, right? So you'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Nobody's saying that, asking you for a story, specific, right? Tuberculosis, right? Carcinoma of lung, right? Bronchiectasis, it's very specific answers, right? Okay. So contraindications, let's say these are 2 contraindications. History of pancreatitis, personal history of medullary thyroid carcinoma. These are 2 conditions where you'll absolutely not give this drug. So these are 2 contraindications. What are the comorbidities? Type 2 diabetes, NASH or NAFLD, and obstructive sleep apnea. These are 3 comorbidities, right? This is again illustrative, okay, just to give you an idea. So what I did was I wrote another prompt now. So what I did, I said, now I want you to extend this code, okay? So to extend this code, collect the following data: type 2 diabetes, yes or no; NASH, NAFLD, yes or no; obstructive sleep apnea, yes or no; pancreatitis, yes or no; family history of medullary thyroid carcinoma, yes or no. Then next step, if the BMI is more than 30 and answer to both points 4 and 5 are contraindications. If the answer to both are no, give output as patient is a candidate for the drug, which is semaglutide in this case. The BMI is more than equal to 27, then, and 4 and 5, there are no contraindications, then any of these. So if patient has 27 with any comorbidities, then you give semaglutide. So this is a prompt, exactly what I was thinking in the mind. I wrote it as a prompt and again put it in the ChatGPT, and again it generated this code here, right? So you can see I'm not showing the entire process again. You just put that code in the the chat which I was having, and it generated the code again. So you can see here it is generating height, weight, same things, those things again. Then type 2 diabetes, yes or no; NASH or NAFLD, yes or no; obstructive sleep apnea, yes or no, and all this it generated for me. Okay. So you can then, so this we did, and I saved this code, right? I downloaded this as an HTML and uploaded it on there is a free site which allows you to upload HTML, which is called Tiny Site, right? So I uploaded this on this website called Tiny Site, and you can actually check this out, check this code out, right? Try it out, right? So this actually entire process of writing a code, actually making an app, this is actual app, this is actual application, this is high level application. Okay, this is not something which is very small, right? In fact, you know, at one point of time, these type of applications used to cost lakhs of rupees. Now I do this in, it took me 15 minutes to do this, just 15 minutes from that, right? So it's called SEMA BMI, you know, you can try this out, right? And check this out, right? So this is the whole idea. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a little algorithm in my brain. So if you, let's say you see a certain type of patients very commonly, let's say you see patients during the, you know, a viral season, see a lot of patients with cough, right? So you want to decide whether I want to give antibiotic or not, right? So you will say, okay, patient has fever, patient has sputum, patient has yellowish sputum, consider giving antibiotic. Okay, antibiotic also, then there will be certain choice of antibiotics. Should you give levofloxacin? Should you give azithromycin? Right? So you can make a little framework in your mind. Write it just with a pen and paper. Make an algorithm. Okay, sputum che, yes or no? Sputum yes, right? Consider antibiotic. Antibiotic, which antibiotic? Levofloxacin, azithromycin, right? What do you want to give? So based on certain characteristics, you will say, you know, this patient will give levofloxacin, this patient will give azithromycin, right? So you make a little chart on your own, and in fact try doing a little bit of coding, right? So try using ChatGPT and make a little code for yourself, and you'll find that it's quite amazing. So what this does for me is that next time I see a patient with obesity, I don't have to think everything again. All I have to do is open my own website, right? Open my own application, put the data, get the output, right? Simple, right? I just need height, weight of the patient and few basic clinical parameters, and within a minute I would have decided whether I want to give this patient with precision. Right, I've decided whether this patient should be given a obesity or not. And you know, you'll realize something very miraculous, very beautiful about it. Sometimes, you know, you have all these patients, you know, who bring their relatives also, and you know, so you may not remember what advice you gave them, but they will remember what advice you gave them, right? So sometimes what happens is they are contradicting yourself, right? So you told one patient one thing, but their own relative something different, right? The patient, right? You told me this, and then you are telling my relative something else, right? So that also is prevented if you are very precise, right? So this is a precision system which I make. This system, whenever the patient comes, you know, I put it through this, right? And then then I decide whether I should give this drug or not, right? So it's one way of doing it, right? Okay. Looking ahead, right? Today morning, I said, let me do something very special for the audience of Hitcon, okay? So somebody shared in one of the WhatsApp group about adult immunization guidelines. I said this is very important for primary care. A lot of audience were going to be primary care physicians, and it's very important for primary care physicians to you know about adult immunization. So there is an adult immunization guideline for Indians, right? So there's a PDF file. So what we did was we actually used ChatGPT to. This is a little complex, so I think you know but use ChatGPT to make a custom GPT for answering questions about adult immunization. Okay, so this is one thing we made. Again, it took me a little bit about half an hour or 1 hour to make this because of certain complications which I faced, but I did it, right? I started in the morning, and by the time I had this presentation, I was ready, right? Including the whole day's work and other obligations to do, right? So here you can go. So this is the thing. You can check this out. It's again put it live on the website. It's adultvaccineindia.tiny.site. You can scan this QR code also. I'll show you an example. So this is the thing. It is what the website will look like. Adult Immunization Guidelines India by Dr. Om. And here it says, hello, tell me your patient's age, gender and other comorbidities to select the suitable vaccine. So again, I tried this in one of the patients, last patients that I saw. So 66-year-old female patient with type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease, what vaccine should be given to her, right? So this is what I asked, okay? So you can see it is using the ChatGPT at the background, using the adult immunization guideline which I uploaded, right? So it's giving you answer from the guideline, okay? So you can see, in fact, I verified the answer, it's pretty good, right? So it says you need influenza vaccine, 1 dose annually, desirable, hepatitis B vaccine 3 doses, TDAP 1 dose every 10 years considered vital, pneumococcal vaccine, this is very important, very critical, right? So it says 1 dose of PCV13 followed by PPSV 23 8 weeks later, and then another PPSV after 5 years should be essential, and COVID-19 vaccine if the patient has not taken, right? So this is the guide, this is from the Indian guidelines, okay? So this is the answer, right? So I said, okay, fine. They said that, you know, influenza vaccine should be given before flu season. Now I live in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat. When is the flu season actually, right? So again, I asked this, and you know, this is written in the guideline also, right? So it says that in Ahmedabad typically starts before the monsoon season in South India or before winter season in North India. So you should, you know, this is when you should have received the influenza vaccine. You can try this out, right? Like I said, all this thing took me about an hour to make, right?
Excellent and working, just right.
You tried it, right? Great. So you can try it out. This is going to be around, right? So I said this is a project which is going to remain. Okay. So again, so that was the idea. The idea is that whenever you are faced with a clinical decision that you take often, right? Sometimes some rare patient you see once in a blue moon, fine, forget about it. But there are certain types of patient you keep seeing repeatedly, right? And what you can do is in that repeated patient, you can make simple algorithms and make maybe a code and try it out, right? And you will be able to give faster, better, more precise clinical decision. And that fundamentals of using computational medicine. Second very important fundamental, if you see how computers work, computers break everything into granular details, into small things, right? Computers break it down into, computer understand only one language, right? That is 1 and 0. Okay, so all the other languages are built on that, right? So it's either 1 and 0. If you see nature also tries to break things down into very small details. I'll give you example. DNA. All of us are made up of 4 base pair. The entire living creatures on the planet, on planet Earth, is made up of DNA or RNA, which contains basically 4 base pairs, right? We all are, it's the same thing, right? Like we make computers with 2 base pairs, 1 and 0. God has made us with 4 base pairs, right? That's it. Our entire code is based on that 4 bases, right? So everything is broken down into granular details. Music, right? Any music, 7 notations you have, right? Colors, 3 basic colors, some will say 7 basic colors, whatever. You have basic colors, right? RGB. All the colors are made up of that 3 basic colors, right? So everything is broken down into small granular details. So again, whenever you deal with a complex situation, whenever you deal with a patient where you don't understand, or maybe in future, you want to enhance your practice, learning new things, what you do is first you break things down into small fundamentals, right? A lot of you would have heard about Elon Musk, right? He often talks about this, right? This is called first principle thinking, right? So everything break down into the smallest possible, the basic questions. Why is this patient coming to me, right? What does this patient want, right? Simple answers, right? Simple questions, and break it down into small details, and you will be able to see magic. And if you see why this is an important way of thinking, again, a framework for thinking, it's very important to do it in this way, because if you start thinking in these principles, right, you will understand that the nature also works in this principle, and almost anything you will be able to build in future also, and AI also thinks in the same way. So it's a training for you to start amalgamating with the AI, because AI also breaks things down into simple, small principles, right? I'll show you an example, right? A lot of you, it is just for fun, okay? A lot of you would have, I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but a lot of us, including I know Dr. Butch and a lot of people are closet musicians, right? They want to be A.R. Rahman, right? They want to be Pritham, right? Even Pritham, wants to be Pritham, right? So everybody wants to be a musician, but nobody, a lot of us, I have, very little music skills, right? Now you have AI, there are AI tools, like there's one called Suno, right? Suno, the same what we say in Hindi, right? SUNO. So Suno basically can actually generate music. You will be amazed with the kind of music it can generate with just a few clicks, right? And there are again tools where you can actually make videos also with a few prompts. We actually made a video, right? This again took me half a morning on some Sunday where I was inspired. You can check this out, right? I don't know if the sound will be audible, but I'll share the link also, so you can probably, it's now, we in fact uploaded this music on Spotify and all the other platforms, okay? Not sure whether it's audible. Okay, I'll share it up. I don't think it's probably crashed. Okay, so I'll share the music in the link later. I'll probably share the, yeah. So the idea, what I'm trying to say again is that, how does AI do it? AI basically breaks down the entire thing into a simple granular code, that is the notations of a music. And with this, it is able to create, it understands, reads it like a text, it reads it like a number, and then tries to make music on it. So you will try this out, right? You will be able to make beautiful music without knowing any basics of music, right? You'll be also amazed with kind of things you can actually do, right? Okay. Same way, if you look further, right, the concept can be literally game changing in bioinformatics. Remember, like I said, the DNA is made of 4 base pair. And whenever you are looking at genetic conditions, now we all have the Human Genome Project where the entire genetics of the human body is mapped out. So let's say you are looking for a certain mutation, right? Now, just using a large language model like ChatGPT, you'll be able to actually discover so much in the same thing, right? In the same way, I think there is another use for it. It's called the, sorry, large files, it's crashing a lot. There's another use for it called drugs GPT, which I think it was a lot of news also these days. What it basically does is that using AI, you are actually in future be able to develop new drugs and very precise medications, right? So, for example, a particular type of cancer with particular subtype, you will be able to actually give a very specific type of anti-cancer drug for that, right? So, I think that's sorry. Yeah. So, this is one of the drawbacks of computational medicine is that sometimes computational medicine, sometimes the system crashes. Okay, so sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so then let's come to the next concept, right? If it is measured, it is managed. This is very important, right? Again, this is from a computational perspective, right? Computer measures everything, right? It measures the currently it is measuring the speed at which my CPU is going, and maybe the system is not able to take the load, so it is crashing it so that my computer does not stop completely, right? So if it is measured, it is managed. This is very important. I'll give you one example from especially this is true for chronic disorders. I'll give you an example from endocrinology itself. Now there are 2 diseases, right? Type 2 diabetes, which is so popular that right now every second conference is about a diabetes conference, right? So many conferences. There is a disease which is equally devastating, equally common, equally important to endocrinologists, and that is osteoporosis, right? Nobody talks about osteoporosis. Even endocrinologists don't talk about osteoporosis. Actually, the reason is very simple. The reason is measurement, right? So diabetes is something, right? Type 2 diabetes is something which you can measure. You can regularly measure, okay? So you can measure the blood sugars, you can measure the HbA1c, almost every component of diabetes you can measure. You can measure the BMI of the patient, you can measure the the urine albumin creatinine ratio of the patient. Osteoporosis, you can only measure once doing a DEXA, which is also not perfect. And it's very difficult to follow up that patient, very difficult to measure and follow, right? There are certain bone turnover markers which are emerging, but that is also not very well developed science right now. So even though osteoporosis is equally devastating, equally important to prevent, right? A lot of women, in fact, you'll be surprised, more women die of fracture neck femur than they die of breast cancer. Yet you have, pink ribbon for breast cancer, right? There is no ribbon for osteoporosis, right? So that's the reality, okay? So, and with the aging population, osteoporosis is even more important because we are all going to become older. We are all going to develop weak bones. We are all going to develop osteoporosis. We are all going to someday fall and break a hip, right? And these are common things, right? If you see anyone in your family. But the problem with osteoporosis is that doctors understand this less, patients understand this less because there is very difficult to measure the outcome, right? So if you can measure the outcome of anything, it is managed better. And that's why it's very important that whenever you start a patient on any treatment, one thing you should do is try to see the outcome. We always do that, right? For example, if you start a patient on an antibiotic, patient comes with fever, you start the patient on antibiotic, you start the patient on paracetamol, you are measuring something. Okay, fever utrokani, is the fever coming down, right? Is the WBC coming down? Is the CRP coming down? We are measuring this, and by measuring this, patients will also say, okay, first day I came, my temperature was 103 degrees Fahrenheit, and when I met Dr. Pragnesh, he started me on this medicine, and after 2 days it was normal, right? 99, 98, right? So the point is that patients are also measuring, right? Patients are also trained in that way. So if you are able to measure the outcome, measuring the outcome is going to make your system better, right? So whenever you start with, do not start something diffuse, start with something which you can follow and measure. And if you are able to do that, you will become a very successful practitioner, because this is one framework of thinking which really helps your patients and helps you. Finally, precision is everything. And this is what I've been saying, earlier as well. The future of medicine actually lies in precision medicine. And we all to a lot of extent practice precision medicine, right? Our patients also demand precision medicine. How many times, has a patient come and said, "Okay, sir, ये दवाई मुझे सूट नहीं हो रही है," right? This medicine doesn't work for me, right? Or this, medicine I like this medicine I don't like, right? So that is all precision at the patient's level. At their very basic understanding, they are having vague understanding of precision they have. As doctors, we have a far greater understanding of the precision system, right? We know how the biology works. We know how the patient's body works. So precision is very important, right? I'll give you one example where precision has been again very, very effective, and that is something which we have made a very complex, a system is actually quite complex, but we actually been able to make it. We actually got some funding from RSSDI also, right? So one of the things which I always wanted to make was a precision system where you can actually give the right anti-diabetic drug for your patients, right? So made the system called diabetology.co.in. All did a lot of coding at back end. It took me a long time to make this. So the dream project, I'm actually happy that it actually came out, right? By the time it came out now, it's there. I want to now expand this to something bigger, right? So let's say a newly diagnosed patient comes with diabetes. It's available on diabetology.co.in. You can check that out, right? This is the QR code for that. So the idea is that when a patient comes with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes, what do I want to do? What do I want, right? Which anti-diabetic should I give? Should I give this patient sulfonylurea? Should I give SGLT2? Should I give metformin? Should I give insulin? Right? It actually develops this entire system, kind of works it, right? So basically you enter the data of the patient, you enter all the details, common details, right? Age of the patient, gender. The more details you put, the better outcome you get, right? There are certain things you have to compulsorily enter, other things are optional. When you enter the compulsory things, right, and certain things are optional, it will give you the outcome. Okay, so you enter the data. It will initially take 4 or 5 minutes to enter the data, but if you start doing it more often, you will be able to do it in a minute. My assistant is able to do it in a minute. So it then gives you all the recommendations. Does my patient need insulin? What is the diabetic kidney disease status? What is the cardiovascular status? Does the patient require statin, right? Is the patient candidate for diabetes remission? All of these things, right? And then it will start prescribing the medicines, right? Statin. Is patient requires insulin, right? So on and so forth. It'll also give you then next step, you can go to the prescription page. This is all there on the online. You can go to the prescription page where you can actually change the dosage of the medication if you want. Let's say I don't want to give 20 mg. I want to start with 10 mg of rosuvastatin. Fine, right? You want to change the timing. Let's say instead of taking a bedtime, you say take it after lunch, for example, right? So you can change. You can add a brand name, for example, right? So you can do all that. Finally, it will give you the prescription in a tabular format, and then you can print out the prescription like a PDF, right? So you can do all this in a single system, single file system where you can actually work, right? Again, like I said, so these are all, none of them have any, commercial interest. The idea is basically these are all, I'm like a scientist who does all these mad experiments. This is a mad experiment, which again is quite successful, right? So these are the things. The idea is basically, now I use it myself. When I see a newly diagnosed patient, I use my own system, right? Which I made. It saves me time, it saves me energy, saves me that brain cells of thinking that same thing again and again, right? So I've made this into a system like that very first thing, and it gives you a very precision form of treatment, right? It's very consistent form of treatment that, based on these parameters, statin is required. So I'll give the statin to the patient and so on and so forth, right? So it makes the system very perfect. So this is the whole idea. Now to just summarize a few take home messages and again, few ideas which you can take home. Like I said, the idea of the entire lecture was actually to put some philosophies and ideas in your brain, to implant inception of an idea in your brain, which you think about it, right? When you go home today, when you're going for a walk in the evening, tomorrow morning, you just think about those ideas and see how that ideas grows into something fruitful, right? The first take home message for you is, remember, the current era and the future era of medicine is mathematical, right? More and more people are going to look at more precision, right? Nowadays, my Apple Watch gives me the sleep data, right? How many hours did you sleep? What was the quality of your sleep, right? And trust me, this simple nudge also, right, is so helpful. Okay, last night I slept for only 5 hours, right? Because I had to give a talk. Now today I'm going to finish the talk. I'm more relaxed. Maybe I'll sleep for 7 hours, right? So, okay, great. My sleep is better, right? So it can give you all the data. So everybody, all the tech companies are trying to work in that way. So we also need to align in that way, right? Clinical decision making will be eventually left to computers, right? All this decision making will be left. But what is our job in that sense, right? At some level, for the next 5-10 years, we'll be developing those systems which are going to replace us. But then we'll evolve into being the trial lawyers, right? Where our job then will be to be the human face to our patient, to deliver those clinical decisions, to convince our patients, to talk to them, to give the human side of it, to show empathy, right? That is what our job will be. Secondly, algorithmic thinking, breaking things down into clinical problems, decision making, to step-by-step algorithm is something which is very useful, right? And if you write a code, if you can write, it actually simplifies your brain. In fact, I use this in a lot of my day-to-day work also, right? For example, let's say, I want to change my insurance company of my, just an example, this recent example, I will change my insurance company of my car. So what is the step-by-step process for that, right? So what is the first step, what is the second step, what is the third step, right? So these are all things, I often write down, okay, first I'll do this, second I'll do this, third I'll do this, right? And it works very beautifully, right? So it works in a very harmonic way. The more you think that way, it actually relieves your brain of a lot of stress, right? And it makes you think better, right? Change, the world is changing. Very importantly, be curious, be the person who sees the change happening, right? And sometimes you also need to dip your toes in the change, right? Rather than being left behind, right? So just dip your toes. It's not that you Aki Gangama, you just swim into it. You're not going to swim. You are going to drown, right? So it's not unless you're a swimmer. The idea is just dip your toes, right? Just drink that ghat no pani, right? As they say. That's the idea, right? So you are then aware about what the world is, right? That's all you should be doing, right? That's the whole idea. So parting, again, food for thought. And this is the last thing. This is a mega idea, right? It's never going to, be fruitful, but it's just a thought for you, again, an inception of an idea. This is one thing I've been thinking, right? And this is what I say to a lot of people. We are either the last of the mortals or the first of the immortal runs. Think about it, right? I'll give you some examples, right? If you see the mortality data, we are doctors. Immortality is the final frontier of medicine, right? Just like, for example, Christopher Columbus wanted to see India, right? Or wanted to see, that was for him final frontier. Or for Elon Musk, going to space is the final frontier. Doctors, the final frontier is immortality. That is what we are all striving. That all our patients live longer, for the rest of their life, and that's the idea, right? So, how will we reach immortality? Right? If you see, gradually there is improvement in life expectancy. It's already happening, right? Cardiovascular diseases, the number, we are taking vaccines, etc., right? We have already conquered the 3 major causes of death, right? Cardiovascular disease, infection, and cancer. We are always, we are making that better cure for cancer, better cardiovascular count, infections also we are treating, right? But the actual way, I think, is how it will happen is this way. Separating the body from the brain. Now, if you see, again, go back to old philosophy. If you go to, the ancient Indian philosophy, or take any philosophy of any religion, one thing they always teach is that the human body is separate from the soul, right? It's always, the body versus soul. Your body is something which is mortal, your soul is not, right? That's actually true. Your soul, your brain, your memories, it's a code, right? Your human body is something which is perishable. It's like, for example, right, we have all changed our mobile phone, right? So first your mobile phone was Samsung and now it's an iPhone. So what you did, you took a SIM card from Samsung and put the SIM card in your iPhone, okay? So you change your SIM card, your phone number remains the same, but your external body has changed, right? Completely, right? Your old Samsung is not working properly. Now the new iPhone is working very smartly. So that's the idea, right? So what we are doing is you're separating the code, our human code, with the body, which is just an exterior surface, right? So what will happen is basically, right, your genes, your physical aspects, your memories, all these things make you. You as a person, you as a human being have all these aspects, right? But it's the memories and the experiences that are stored in your brain is what characterizes you, right? You would have seen about cloning, right? The sheep which was cloned. That sheep which was cloned is not the same sheep which the mother is going to be, because that sheep is going to have different experiences. So that sheep will have different memories, right? So even though the body structure is the same, the genes are the same, it's a different sheep. Same way, somebody clones you, it is not going to be the same person. You are the person who you are because of your memory and experiences. So what the idea is, and this is already happening, they're already started mapping the memory. So if you I can map your memory, this is developing so fast. If I can map your memory, I just map your memory, put it into a code, and I could just take this code, put it in a disk, put it in a pen drive, and to transfer that to another body, right? Another human body or another computer, right? Maybe it's stored in a computer, maybe it's stored, right? It's like your titanium iPhone, right? Your SIM card is now shifted there. What if we could do this in future, right? From birth to today, whatever memories you have, you store it in a computer, you store it in a hard drive, and then in future you develop systems which can read that hard drive. Aren't you technically immortal, right? The reality is this technology, what I'm saying, is actually developing so fast. It's almost there. We are almost there, right? We just need some few key components which has to be finished, right? Like the Human Genome Project, nobody thought is going to happen in their lifetime. It happened. Same way with the use of a lot of these technologies, this is also happening very fast. The question is, will we live long enough for this, for us, our memories to be stored in a hard disk, or we leave it to the next generation? We are the generation which is the last, right? The next generation is going to be immortal. So we are almost there. Think about it, right? And thank you. And you can follow me on Twitter, right? The idea was basically, like I said, just to give an idea, a thought for you to think, right? Thank you for a patient listening. We'll be happy to take questions if there are any.
Booth sir, your comments?
So I think you're muted.
Sir, unmute yourself.
Thank you very much
Me-
for this illustrious and very good discussion on computational medicine. And obviously, we are going to see so many changes in very short future, including all the sciences. So you gave a very good overview of the changes that we are to face, and all of us are benefited by your wide coverage of the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Om. Actually, it was like a sci-fi ride that we are into the gliding into the future. And as when I meet Dr. Java Jetwa sir, one of the legends who is a very forefront in using technology, he always says, "If practice technology, it is not the future; it is reality. If you live behind, if you do not embrace technology, you will have behind, as you have said. So the technology for the future is already here. Only thing is we need time and an attitude to adapt the change that is coming. And as you rightly said, mathematics and the computations are the part of life, and ultimately, end of the day, these algorithms and these are the things which is going to rule the medicine. So every doctor has to learn to adapt to use the technology to survive in future. And so people, I think, in the wrong way, they're worried that artificial intelligence will take away the doctor's job. It will be doctors who will lose their job if they do not accept artificial intelligence. I think it's the other way around.
Very true, sir. Very
And
true.
Dr. Om, I tell Dr. Pragnesh Bhai and the audience that if you use Hitcon, you will be hit. And if you do not use Hitcon, you will be hit.
True, sir.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bhupesh Bhai. You want to say something?
ટેકનોલોજી એ એવી વસ્તુ છે કે જો તમે એને છોડો તો તમને એ છોડી જશે, પણ એ આગળ જ વધવાની છે. એટલે તમે નવા જનરેશનની સાથે કોમ્પિટ કરી જ નથી શકવાના. અને એના માટે જ આપણે હિટકોન કરીએ છીએ. અને એ હિટકોનના ઇમ્પેક્ટથી જ આપણે આવા સ્પીકર્સના કોન્ટેક્ટમાં આવ્યા છે. અને એના લીધે જ આપણે અમુક વખત પૂછતી વખત દરેક જણને એવું થતું હોય કે આ તો મને નથી આવડતું, પણ પૂછવામાં શરમાય કે એને આવડતું હશે તો મને શું કહેશે. પણ મેં જોયું એટલીસ્ટ ટેકનોલોજીને આ કોમ્પ્યુટરમાં કે બધાને બધું બહુ નથી આવડતું. તમે ખાલી એને પૂછીને શીખી લીધા પછી તમને આવડશે, પેલાને નહીં આવડે બીજાને. એટલે પૂછવું ટેકનોલોજીનું અને પૂછીને આગળ વધી શકાય, અને એમાં કોઈ જાતની નાનપણ નહીં અનુભવાય. એવું જો રાખશો તો જ તમે ટેકનોલોજીને શીખી શકાય. બાકી હું અત્યારે ઓમ સરને એ જ પૂછવા માંગતો હતો કે તમે શોખના લીધે શીખ્યા કે કોઈ જગ્યાએ શીખવા ગયેલા? ડોક્ટર ઓમ.
So it's all shock, right? It's all this is actually I ended up in the wrong profession by chance. I was meant to be somewhere else. So but you never leave your passion. Basically, you never leave what you like. And I think actually quite blessed that now actually the world is not of technology people. The world is of specialists, world is of people who have domain knowledge, right?
True.
More doctors are going to be required by AI companies and by all these, technology companies than technology people, because coding to away chat GPT 100%, they may not be able to prescribe medicines. It will take a long time for that to happen, but they can right now do the coding itself, right? Today itself, somebody like me can do the coding. Somebody, who has not learned coding also can do. So the point is that technology is going to replace technologists first before it's going to replace us. The reality is that right now is an era, it's an era of having experience and domain knowledge, right? And if you have a domain knowledge, nobody is going to replace you. You are gold actually, in that sense. So that's what is very important.
One very important change which has happened and the world is changing every day is કે પહેલા એવું હતું કે જેને સારા જવાબ આવડે એ બ્રિલિયન્ટ હતો. હવે ફ્યુચર એનું છે જેને સાચા સવાલ આવડે.
અને કોને પૂછી શકાય કે એના પાસેથી સાચો જવાબ મળે.
એ તો છે જ. છેલ્લા 50, 60, 70, 80 વર્ષના નોલેજને ભેગું કરીને તમારા ગજવામાં તમને જીપીટી આપેલો જ છે, એટલે એને જ પૂછવાનું છે, બરાબર ને? પણ શું પૂછવાનું, કયું પૂછવાનું, કયા વસ્તુઓ પૂછવાની, એના પરથી તમારું પોતાનું ધારેલું સોંગ, તમારો પોતાનો ધારેલો આર્ટિકલ અથવા તો કોડ તૈયાર થશે. અને એટલે we must learn what to ask, how to ask, how deep to ask, how relevant to ask. And asking is the best way of seeking knowledge.
Fine.
Good,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Thank you, Dr. Om, for that excellent talk, and thank everyone for joining. Thank you, Abud sir. Thank you, Dr. Javra sir. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.